In lesson 5.1, we'll be multiplying polynomials, which really is just a review of something that you did in Algebra 1. So when multiplying polynomials, we are just using the distributive property, and that's really true throughout this lesson. So let's just take a look at this. We'll just do several examples as a review. So we take this 2x and it's multiplied by these things added together. So this 2x is just going to be multiplied by each term. And be aware of your signs in between. So 2x times 3x cubed is 6x to the fourth. 2x times 3x squared is 6x cubed. And then this is one subtraction, so 2x times 5x is minus, and then we have 10x squared. Next one's similar. This is just two terms here. So 3a times 4a squared plus b is 12, and then a times a squared is a cubed. And we still have that b there, and then 3a times 6b cubed, so we have a minus, or we could think plus a negative, and this is 18. We have the a and b cubed. And that's just multiplying when you have a monomial times a binomial or trinomial, or it could be 4 or 5 or 6 terms. Next, we're going to look at a binomial times a binomial. We can talk about this FOIL method. You also can just make sure you use the distributive property. The FOIL method is you multiply the first terms, so you see the f here, first of each binomial, then the outer terms, then the inside terms, then the last terms. So really it's just multiplying each term in this first binomial times each term in the second. So we have 2x times 3x is 6x squared. 2x times 6, it's a plus there, so plus 12x. We can think of this as a negative 7 plus a negative 7. And so negative 7 times 3x is negative 21x. And negative 7 times 6 is negative 42. Oftentimes when multiplying binomial times a binomial, you'll have like terms. So we have a 12x and a negative 21x, so we have 6x squared minus 9x minus 42. Over here, same idea. So we have first terms, so a squared b times ab squared. Well, a squared times a is a cubed, and then we have b times b squared, which is b cubed. Then we multiply these two. It's a negative, so we have minus 2a squared b. 3 times ab squared, so we have plus 3ab squared. And then 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. Here we look through to add like terms, but there are not like terms. These almost look alike, but this one, the a is squared, and this one, the b is squared. Next, we're going to look at a couple special products, actually 3 special products. So when we see these things or something in this form, we should be able to multiply quickly because we know what they're going to equal. So let's first multiply them out, and then we'll talk about the thing we can do, or our special idea we can work with. So we have a times a is a squared. A times negative b is minus ab. So that was this. And then b times a is plus ab. And then b times negative b is negative b squared. And what we notice here, we have these like terms in here, and they are actually opposites. And that's because these were opposites, a plus b and a minus b. So we actually end up with a squared minus b squared. This is going to be helpful in many different ways. First, if we ever see something in this form where we have the same first term and then the same second term, and one's positive, one's negative, it will always be the first thing squared minus the second thing squared. Later on, we're going to be able to look at something like this, and we'll go back to something in this form when we work with factoring. These next two are highly missed questions because some people just want to square the a and square the b. This is not the case. You cannot do that. So remember, squared means multiplied by itself. So we're going to write this as a plus b times a plus b. We're going to multiply it out, and we get a squared plus ab. Multiply these two, you get another ab and plus b squared. Now notice here, when you have something, a binomial squared, every time you'll get this a times b and then a b times a, so they're the same thing. So you always will have two of those. It will be doubled. So we still have the a squared, and then we have plus 2ab plus b squared. And what we can notice here is anytime we have a binomial squared, it will be the first thing squared. So there's the a squared. The first times the second, a times b, doubled or multiplied times 2, and then plus b squared, plus the second thing squared. This is going to work out here also. So we have, it's just that we're going to have a different sign here. So we have, I'll write it out again. But as we come across these, we won't have to write them out because we know what the answer will be. A times a is a squared. A times negative b is negative ab. And then negative b times a is another negative ab. So again, you'll have two of those. And then negative b times negative b, it's a negative times a negative, so it's b squared. And once again, we have these like terms. So we have a squared minus 2ab plus b squared. So again, it's the first one squared. This times this doubled, and you can think of this as plus a negative if that helps. So a times negative b is negative ab, and then multiplied by 2, so negative 2ab, and then the last thing squared, and remember a negative times a negative is positive. This will help us with things like 2x minus 3 squared. And so we have a binomial squared. Remember what we just said. It's going to be the first thing squared. So 2x squared, 2x times 2x is 4x squared. And then it's going to be the first times the second, so negative 6x, but multiplied by 2, because we actually end up with two of those terms. So negative 6x times 2 is negative 12x. And then the second thing squared, negative 3 times negative 3 is 9, so plus 9. That's how you work with those. The last thing, we can't use FOIL anymore, but this is still just using the distributive property. Each term from the first polynomial has to be multiplied times each term in the second. So let's work our way through this. We're going to take this 2c, and this 2c has to be multiplied by each term. So it's going to be multiplied by all three terms in this trinomial, which will be 2c times 6c squared is 12c cubed. 2c times 7c, so plus 14c squared, and then 12c times negative 5, so we have negative 10c. Now we have to take this second term and multiply it by everything. So realize this is plus and negative. You can write it in. You can just realize it because it's minus 5. So I'll write it in, but again, you don't have to. So negative 5 is going to get multiplied by all three terms. And so this will give us negative 5 times 6c squared is negative 30c squared. Negative 5 times 7c is negative 35c. And negative 5 times negative 5 is plus 25. Now that we have this, we're going to go ahead and look for like terms. We have a 12c cubed. Well, there's no other c cubes, so we got a 12c cubed. 14c squared, we see a c squared here, and then we have a negative c squared here. So we can combine those. 14 and negative 30 is negative 16c squared. Negative 10c and negative 35c are like terms. So we have negative 45c. And then we have our constant term of 25, so we have plus 25. And so this lesson, again, was just a review of multiplying polynomials, whether it be a monomial, binomial, trinomial, we should be able to multiply all those, and then we had those special cases that we can multiply.